Welcome to Marketing Made Simple TV. I'm Jeff Ogden, the host of the show, and we're thrilled to have you back once again for another great show. And we've got a great guest on the show. Not only is he a marketing expert, but he's a true American hero. Chad Pollitt is a decorated veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and he's a former Army commander as well as a marketing expert. So let's welcome Chad to the show.
Hi, Jeff. Great to be here.
Hi, Chad. It's good to have you here. I'm going to start you off with just the first question I ask every guest, and we'll get into some other things. But the first question on every show that Guy Kawasaki and all these very famous guests have answered is, who are you and what do you do?
Okay, well, Jeff, like you said, my name's Chad Pollitt. I am a marketer. I actually just got out of the military in October. And what you see on my face is a proud retirement Army beard that we let grow usually for a few months. So this isn't going to stay on, but that's what that is. When I wasn't doing Army stuff, I was doing digital marketing, all kinds of digital marketing, inbound marketing, content marketing, whatever you want to call it. And my career has brought me to Digital Relevance in Indianapolis, formerly Slingshot SEO, where I manage our brands and a team of very talented marketers.
Sounds great, Chad. And before we start diving into some of this stuff, let's talk about the real life situation. You're based in Indianapolis. We've had some incredible, the polar, whatever whatchamacallit, that attacked us all. And you had some personal challenges. So why don't you tell us what happened?
Oh yeah, Jeff. I just moved into a brand new house, and this hits, and one of my pipes exploded. So I had water everywhere, and because it's so cold, pipes exploded everywhere all over the city. So I still don't have a plumber, which means I have no water. So hopefully tomorrow that'll be taken care of, and we'll be up and running again.
Sounds good. I hope you and your family, I know you said you're going to take them to a hotel, so I hope that all goes well for you, Chad, and I hope it all works out. Now, the thing we wanted to talk about today was that you had mentioned to me is something that I think is such a problem. You know, you write a blog post and nobody reads it. You create an ebook and nobody sees it. You know, as you wrote in your article, content is king, but distribution is queen. Why is content distribution such a challenge? Why is it so hard to get people to see your content?
Well, that's a pretty loaded question, Jeff, and I'll start by saying that there's three types of media out there. There's owned media, earned media, and paid media, okay? And where many marketers fall short with their content marketing is that they live in one place, and that's owned media. So what many tend to do is to create a whole bunch of content, and they have the belief that if you build it, they will come. Well, it used to be you could do that. 2009, 2008, 2010 even, you could really get away with that, and it would work. But what's happening today is it's a concept of Marcus Sheridan. Some of you might know him as the sales lion. He calls this the content saturation index. And what he's talked about is that certain industries are reaching the peak amount of content that people can consume, and that search engines can put on their SERPs and index and so on and so forth. So we're getting just a deluge of content everywhere, right? So what's happening is that those websites that created content prior to now, a lot of content that have large audiences, they're holding on to those audiences. And the number of people that reside in a potential audience pool for certain industries is finite. It's not unlimited. So what happens is, once, for example, we'll say marketers, there's a lot of content written about marketing. So once all the marketers find the websites that they like to go to and read and they subscribe to and engage with, so on and so forth, it's going to be very hard for, say, a new agency or a new website to pop up tomorrow and really attract the audience of marketers, because guess what? We're already reading the content that we want to read. We're already watching the content we want to watch. So what earned and paid media allow you to do today, well, they've always allowed you to do it, but why it's so important today is it allows brands with no established audience to reach out and get their content in front of other audiences, relevant audiences. And that's really where the power of earned and paid media is.
So let's start off by just defining earned and paid media. What would you consider earned media? What would you consider paid media?
Great question, Jeff. Well, earned media is what most people think of as PR. Around here, we tend to call it digital PR. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Say company X creates an ebook, right? And the ebook's about, I don't know, let's say keeping your home warm in the winter. That's prudent, I guess, for the weather these days. And they want to promote that ebook. Well, there are many, many blogs out there and websites that are very popular around HVAC. Okay, so maybe that the author of that, or maybe a PR person that they hire, will then reach out to those publications, to the editors, to the writers, to the bloggers, and say, hey, listen, we created this great piece of content we think your audience would love. Would you mind if we did a guest post on your website? Or maybe they'd be interested in doing editorial coverage where they actually cover the content piece themselves, which happens. So that's one form of earned media. There are others. For example, myself, I have a column on the Huffington Post that I earned. So if I want to promote an ebook that I write, I can promote it right there on the Huffington Post because that's my column. I earned that. So that's earned media as well. And then one more example of earned media, well, guest posting, period. Just the whole idea of guest blog posting. That's really earned media. Now, on the paid side, you could say straight up PPC in Google, but I don't tend to try to promote content that way. There's really 2 or 3 areas that are really big for paid content promotion, and those areas are native advertising. So when you go to a website, say like the Huffington Post, and at the bottom it recommends other articles for you to read, that's native advertising. And then you have your advertorials. So for example, a site that I read and write for occasionally is Social Media Today. If you go to Social Media Today, you'll find sponsored articles where there's full-fledged articles on there from their sponsors. That's an advertorial. And the third one is social promotion. Social promotion is huge these days, and it's growing. It's growing really fast. Things like getting into Facebook's storyline or newsfeed, excuse me, or LinkedIn, and getting your content featured there. So that would be a paid channel to distribute and promote your content.
It's interesting. I think let's talk a little bit more about the power of guest posting, because I write for the Salesforce blog, I write for the Marketo blog, and I find it. And I've had people question, why do you write those blogs and you don't get paid for it, but it gives you an outlet. I mean, I just winning a new client because of it. So let's talk a little bit about the power of guest posting. What do you find the Huffington Post gives for you?
Well, it's amazing because the Huffington Post is such a big name, but the truth is their audience there's not a large audience of marketers there. So believe it or not, it doesn't do as much for me as, say, a Social Media Today article would, because the people that read Social Media Today, they're all interested in marketing, right? So while the Huffington Post has a bigger audience, The target audience I'm speaking to is just a subset there. But with social media today, for example, they have a very, very large audience. And when I write something, if it resonates with them, and if I give them the opportunity to access an ebook or download a guide or something like that, and they do, well then they go into my contacts list and they can be nurtured for business opportunities, partnership opportunities, further subscriptions, so on and so forth. And that's really the core of our marketing, and it's the marketing automation side of things, and how we get our content in front of other people.
So it's good, and I know Copyblogger has written about this too, and they said not only does it bring you the links, but it brings you the audience from the Huffington Post or social media today. So, so anyway, let's talk a little bit about some of those earned things you talked about, whether the advertorials or the sponsored posts. How do people go about getting those out there, and how much do they cost?
That's a fabulous question. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because we are in the beginning stages of doing a thorough study and figuring out the true value, not just based on cost, but based on return as well. We're going to be analyzing every aspect of all those paid channels we talked about and trying to figure that out, because no one really in the industry that I've seen has an answer across the board. Now, different ones have their individual costs. So, for example, if you want to write advertorials for Forbes, you can. You just got to pay them, and you got to pay them. I believe, I may be off here, but the last time I heard, I thought it was $50K a month, and you have to write a minimum of 4 times a month, I believe. Don't quote me on that. You have to do some due diligence, but it's somewhere around there.
It's interesting, and I find it interesting that you could pay a Forbes to carry your articles, and in many ways that's so much more powerful than buying Google AdWords or Facebook ads or any of those things. So let's talk about things like blog articles. So let's say you wrote what you think is a great blog article. How do you get people to see it? How do you publish a blog article?
Well, considering it's an owned piece of media, the 2 channels, earned and paid, there's a couple ways you can get people to see it. The obvious are broadcasting via social media, the organic way, but that still doesn't tend to drive many eyeballs, right? So one service you could use is a company called Outbrain. And Outbrain is going to do that native advertising, and it's going to find those websites out there with large audiences and then put a sponsored recommendation at the bottom of other articles for people to see and be able to click on and then visit your owned media to consume it. So that's one way. Another way is an earned way, and it's building syndication relationships. So right now, when I write an owned blog post here at Digital Relevance, what happens is there's about 5 websites that my feed automatically goes to their websites. Now they have an editor that goes in and decides whether or not they want to actually publish the post, but my posts tend to get published most of the time. So I'm actually, when I create a piece of owned content, I'm actually creating up to 6, well, excuse me, I'm reaching up to 6 audiences on one blog post because I've established syndication relationships with sites like Yahoo, sites like Social Media Today, business2community.com, and there's others. So that's an earned way to get your own media, your blog posts in front of lots of eyeballs.
It's interesting, Chad, because this is a syndicated show, and when it goes out, it gets syndicated to a lot of those sites you mentioned too, and we're always looking for new ones. Let's talk about whether it's Huffington Post, Social Media Today. Why is it so important to build relationships with those people who run those sites? that, because it's something I've felt, because I do the syndication for the show, and you know the people personally who are in charge of those sites, and you build relationships with them, and what's the importance of that?
Well, first and foremost, we all do the same thing. We all have the same goals. We have the same passion, and that passion is marketing and content marketing. And I like to embrace the people in our industry every chance I get, because I love what I do, and most of the people I encounter do too. So just in terms of building relationships, not just business, but personal relationships too, with people that are passionate about what you're passionate about, it's very fulfilling for me. And when you build real relationships like that, true relationships, they want to see you succeed just as much as you want to see them succeed. And that's why creating these syndicated relationships, it can become much easier to do so, because they want to see you succeed. And the truth is, like I said, audiences, they're not infinite. There's only so many people interested in reading marketing content, which is what we create. And guess what? Those audiences are everywhere. They're built up and around certain core websites. And if I can get my content in front of them and their audience, over time, some of those people will come back to our blog and read our articles.
Really good stuff, Chad, and great talking to you. I don't have much time left, so let's just give us some of the highlights of some of the main points you think people should do in getting their content out, and then I'll learn more about you. So first of all, what are the top like 3 or 4 things you think people could do right now to get their content viewed by more people?
Well, the easiest thing to do off the bat is paid media. Paid media gives you the most control. So look at websites or companies like Outbrain, and do a couple Google searches on advertorials. The next thing I do is I would figure out those niche blogs in your industry, whether it's marketing or something else. Try to figure out where those websites are, and reach out to those folks and try to build real relationships. Social media is great for this. Twitter, things like that. You can also reach out to them and ask them for their input on something you've written, or ask them for advice. Be a real person. And over time, you will build these relationships. Now, we have a dedicated PR team here that's all they do all day is outreach. But if you don't have dedicated resources like that, that's certainly something you can do. And it can happen faster than you think.
Good advice. So basically, check out Outbrain, check out advertorials, and find the most influential blog websites and blogs in your industry. Great advice. So where do people learn more about you, Chad, more about digital relevance? I know you write for the Huffington Post. Where do you recommend the viewers of this show go to learn more about you?
The best place to go is relevance.com/blog, and you'll see all of our bloggers here. I'm one of them, and all my social links are there, my profile links. So, and if that fails, you can easily just Google my name, or hit me up on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter.
I want to thank Chad Pollitt, and as I said, a true American hero, for being a guest on the show, a former guy who won, was in the military in Iraq, pretty interesting, a decorated veteran, and an Army commander, so great stuff, digital relevance. He's a really cool guy, and I appreciate him coming on the show with me. Before we go, we want to thank our sponsors, because our sponsors make the show go. Avatage is a great content marketing company up in the Boston area. Very sharp guy run by Jim Burns. Digitalethos.org is educational, nonprofit. Communication Strategy Group does brand telling and PR. And Watchitoo provides this wonderful platform we use for our TV on the Web show. Go to watchitoo.com to learn about them. Marketing Made Simple TV premieres every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and it encores on Sunday at noon. And it syndicates to many, many sites. So till next time, we'll see you again on Marketing Made